Official spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Qatar, Maher Al-Ansari, stated their goal is to continue negotiations in hope of reaching a sustainable truce between Israel and Hamas. In Panama, top court has ruled mining law 406 as unconstitutional, as was demanded by people demonstrating on the streets for the 36th consecutive day. And in India, officials said Tuesday rescue teams digging by hand are within just 2 meters of reaching 41 men trapped in a collapsed road tunnel for 17 days. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Israel and Hamas agreed on a 2-day extension of a truce that has posed a devastating Israeli bombing of Gaza. A new group of Israeli hostages were to be freed on Tuesday in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. Maher Al-Ansari, official spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, addressed the future of the Israel-Palestine extended truce.
Main focus right now is, and our hope is, to reach a sustainable truce that would lead to further negotiations and eventually to an end to this iteration of violence, to this war. And we have always said that we need the push of the whole international community to make sure that that happens. However, we are working with what we have. And what we have right now is a provision to the agreement that allows us to extend days as long as Hamas is able to guarantee the release of at least 10 hostages from their side. And therefore, this is what we have at the moment.
The first day of the extension of the humanitarian truce between Israel and Hamas, and it's expected that both sides will continue to fulfill their part of the agreement, so that several hostages, both Israeli and Palestinian, should be released in the coming hours. With more details on what is happening in Gaza, our correspondent Noor Harasin has the details.
Both Hamas and Israel agreed to extend the truce. Today is the first day of the extension of this truce, and we are looking at the same conditions as the one before. So Hamas will be releasing more Israeli hostages from its side, while Israel will be releasing more Palestinian prisoners from the Israeli prisons. However, this is what is happening on the ground. On the ground, there is continuous Israeli raids on Palestinians, towns and cities in the West Bank, Jenin refugee camp, Nablus, Tul Karim, and also Hebron. So here is where it's happening. Israel is allowing Palestinians out of the prisons in this exchange deal, but they are arresting even more people during their night raids on these Palestinians' towns in the West Bank. We're talking about more than 3,000 Palestinians that were arrested in the West Bank over the past 7 weeks. We're talking about more than 200 Palestinians that were killed in the West Bank over the past weeks. Only this morning, actually, there was a raid in Jenin refugee camp, and one Palestinian child was also killed. This is not the only thing. Actually, Israel is preaching the truce here in Gaza. In the first day of the truce, Israel killed 2 Palestinian men and 7 were injured when they were trying to walk back to their homes in northern Gaza. On the third day of truce, Israel killed 2 Palestinian farmers that went to their farms to collect their crops. So there is breaches of the truce here in Gaza. There is tension in the West Bank. However, the truce here on the ground in Gaza is holding. Noor Harasin, TeleSUR, Gaza.
On Monday, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said he was hopeful that an extension of a ceasefire in Gaza would lead to a transition to Palestinian Authority rule in Gaza and the West Bank.
Well, first of all, I'm sincerely hopeful that it will be possible to have other crossings, because they will facilitate the distribution, and that will also facilitate the control by the Israeli side. So I'm very hopeful that this will happen. A Palestinian Authority, hopefully, in the day after, and as I mentioned, we will need to look seriously into how the transition takes place, and obviously the before has implications on the after, and so it's still early to know exactly how things will happen. But I believe that we need a Palestinian Authority with the responsibility to rule in Gaza, in the West Bank, and to create the conditions to make sure that the two-state solution moves forward, and this time moves forward in a way that is irreversible. And so, obviously, this will naturally lead to a strengthened Palestinian Authority, and I believe the international community should be ready to support it.
Israeli occupation forces have dropped more than 40,000 tons of explosive on the Gaza Strip, leaving residential areas badly affected and experts fearing that they will be completed uninhabitable. According to local media, Israel's military offensive has turned much of northern Gaza into an uninhabitable moonscape, wiping out entire neighborhoods, homes, schools, and hospitals. Among the buildings that suffered serious damage was the school run by the United Nations Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East. Almost all the buildings in Beit Hanun have been destroyed, but Palestinian citizens have repeatedly expressed their desire to remain in their homes, with what little is left standing. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. On Tuesday, the Supreme Court of Justice of Panama decreed as unconstitutional Law 406, which establishes the legality of the mining operations contract between the state and a Canadian transnational company. The decision was unanimous, and the information was made public by the President of the Court, Maria Eugenia Lopez, after 5 days of permanent sessions. The ruling was received with jubilation by the people and organizations that for weeks have been keeping a vigil at the highest court awaiting the decision. Since October 20th, thousands of citizens organized protests in rejection of the contract with the Canadian subsidiary Quantum First. In Peru, the Attorney General of the nation, Patricia Benavides, filed a complaint against Dina Boluarte for those killed by police repression during the protests against her mandate. The statements were made after the raid of her offices for allegedly being the head of a criminal organization and committing the alleged crime of influence peddling to the detriment of the state. Subsequently, two Supreme prosecutors demanded the resignation of the prosecutor for the same crimes for which she is accused. In this sense, Patricia Benavides reaffirmed that the death cannot go unpunished, and neither should the continuous abuse of power be allowed.
I have filed a constitutional complaint before the Congress of the Republic against the citizens Dina Rosilia Boluarte Segarra, President of the Republic, Luis Alberto Atarola Peñaranda, Cesar Augusto Cervantes Cárdenas, Víctor Eduardo Rojas Herrera, and Vicente Romero Fernandez for the alleged commission of the crime of aggravated homicide against Victor Raúl Santisteban and others, of serious injuries in aggravation of Renato Sebastián Urillo and others, as well as the preparatory investigations has been formalized against the direct perpetrators of said aggravations. Finally, the deaths of any Peruvian should not be allowed, as well as the abuse of power. It cannot be allowed to try to damage the image of honest prosecutors. The people are aware of this. That's why we have always proceeded according to the Constitution and the law.
On Monday's morning, the National Police, in coordination with the Special Team Against Power Corruption, raided at least 6 properties belonging to the Public Prosecutor's Office in the districts of Cercado de Lima, La Molina, El Agustino, and Jesus Maria. According to the investigations, Benavides will be guilty of leading an alleged criminal gang and influence peddling. In this regard, reports indicate that the National Prosecutor had illicitly intervened in the removal of the National Justice Board, in the appointment of the Citizens Ombudsman, and in the approval of political disqualifications. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro pointed out that the Monroe Doctrine, attributed to the U.S. President James Monroe in 1823, is the instrument that has historically endorsed the plundering of sovereign nations. During an event commemorating the 103rd anniversary of the foundation of the Bolivarian military aviation, the president explained that based on the Monroe Doctrine, Washington Treaty was signed in 1897 to constitute the arbitration tribunal that would decide the border controversy between Venezuela and the Kingdom of Great Britain. In addition to sponsoring the overthrow of Cipriano Castro and the imposition of the dictatorship of Juan Vicente Gomez, who implemented a policy of surrender to the benefit of the United States. The Venezuelan head of state asserted that the time has come for justice and not to resist unjust aggression of interfering governments.
We are going to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the Monroe Doctrine, to denounce it with a voice of rebellion and to confront it in all the fields where we have to confront the Monroe Doctrine. Because we are not and never will be slaves of anyone, slaves of the gringos, a colony of no one, independence or nothing. We say from Venezuela, independence or nothing.
The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, stated the Monroe Doctrine served as an instrument for the British and U.S. empire to expropriate the territory of the Essequibo.
It was with the Monroe Doctrine that the British Empire and the newborn Gringo Empire conspired to take away our Essequibo, our Guyana Esquiva. It was with the Monroe Doctrine that the Washington Agreement was signed in 1897. It was with the Monroe Doctrine that the Paris Tribunal was executed, divided by the British Empire with its judges, and the Gringo Empire with its judges. It was with the Monroe Doctrine that the famous null, void, immoral, and illegal Paris Award was given in 1899. It was with the Monroe Doctrine that they overthrew General Cipriano Castro to impose the dictatorship of Juan Vicente Gomez. And hand over all the oil wealth to the gringos and the British. It was with the Monroe Doctrine that they executed the plan to cut off one arm of Venezuela in an attempt to take away our oil. And it is with the Monroe Doctrine that they intend to continue with their servitude and looting.
The Venezuelan president also called for unity and participation in the consultative referendum to be held on December 3rd.
Next Sunday, the 3rd of December, on a beautiful and blessed dawn, the people of Venezuela will have in their hands the possibility of making historic justice and expressing their will, expressing their sovereignty in this historic referendum, the consultative referendum to recover our Guyana Esquiva. So I call for national unity, civil-military union, libertarian union, independence union, so that Sunday will be a day of justice, freedom, independence, and a national holiday.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. In India, officials said Tuesday rescue teams digging by hand are within just 2 meters of reaching 41 men trapped in a collapsed road tunnel for 17 days. Chief Minister of Uttarakhand State, Pushkar Singh Dhami, reported that the escape passage has been prepared up to 55 meters inside the tunnel and a passage will break through at 57 meters. Rescuers resorted to manual digging after the drilling machine broke down because of the region's harsh mountains terrain. Disaster management official Syed Ada Hasnain said it could take 3 to 5 minutes to rescue each worker and expected the rescue operation to take the entire night. The laborers will be removed one by one on wheel stretchers through the 57-meter pipe inserted into the zone. The workers have been trapped since November 12, when a landslide caused a portion of the 4.5-kilometer tunnel they were building to collapse.
We are doing manual digging. Earlier we had part of the auger machine which was hindering work. Now manual digging is going on.
The drilling on the top of the mountain is coming along perfectly. Right? In the tunnel, it's coming along very well.
Supporting you guys.
Yeah,
right?
so I feel good. I've never said I feel good before.
In Indonesia, on Tuesday began the campaign for the parliamentary elections to be held in February 2024. The three candidates for the presidency promised a peaceful campaign despite concerns that their rivalry could exacerbate religious and ethnic divisions in the country. The electoral campaign will last for 75 days until February 10th, 4 days before the scheduled election, when some 205 million of the country's 270 million people are expected to go to the polls. Two of the three candidates, Central Java Governor Ganjar Pranowo of the ruling Indonesia Democratic Struggle Party and former Jakarta Mayor Anies Baswedan, began campaigning on Tuesday, while Prabowo Subianto, a former military officer accused of human rights violations when he was head of the Kopassus, is keeping his candidacy on hold. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg acknowledged on Monday at a press conference that despite substantial and considerable military support provided by NATO over the past year, Ukraine was not able to move the front line. Stoltenberg regretted that Russia has been underestimated, whose military industry is on a warpath. He added that there is a very firm commitment on the part of the bloc member countries to provide military support and a wide range of type of weapons to Ukraine, despite the failure of its counteroffensive. Stoltenberg also noted the need to supply Kiev with air defense systems to protect the population, critical infrastructure, and the military industry. In mid-November, Stoltenberg said that the situation on the front is more complicated than NATO expected and stated that it is an argument in favor of continuing to support Ukraine to prevent President Putin from winning. In this way, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said on Monday that Ukraine needs to finish the war with Russia before joining the military alliance.
It's too early to say exactly what will be the decision at the Washington summit. All allies agree that in the midst of a war, full membership is not possible. But of course, we will continue to look into to address how we can move Ukraine and NATO even closer together as we prepare for the Washington summit. What decision we make there has to be addressed at the later stage when we are closer to the summit.
In China, military drills are being held along the border with Myanmar. The Chinese People's Liberation Army began military drills on the border with Myanmar, which has been hit by violence. The spokesman for the Army's Southern Theater Command, Tian Yunlin, stressed that the Chinese Army is always ready to defend state sovereignty, border stability, and people's safety and prosperity. The purpose of the drill is to test the military unit's border control and firepower after clashes intensified in large areas of Shan State, forcing more than 80,000 people to flee their homes. We have come to the end of this news brief, but before saying goodbye, we want to thank our Caribbean audience, especially the audience of Trinidad and Tobago. We are pleased to share our newscasts and contribute to provide an alternative news source of the latest world events. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social medias on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.